Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about Google. Now it's being speculated that the government could try to break up Google. If you remember, a couple days ago, we covered the Department of Justice ruling that Google is, in fact, a monopoly when it comes to search. Now, there's some speculation that they're going to mull breaking them up. I don't know what that would look like, because Google is a many-headed beast. It's got many tendrils, so they probably would be like, well, we're going to divide up their browser from their search engine, from their advertising, from YouTube, whatever. But
I don't know. See, it's concerning, though, because then if any company does really well, the government could say, you know what, we're going to break you up.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it does get sticky, because the government could just decide they don't like a particular company, or they might think that a company has too much power, but Google does have a lot of power. And so I don't know which way this is going to go, guys. I have no idea. I mean, it very much is a Google world, and we're just kind of living in it.
Well, I think that what they can do is, if it turns out through discovery and things that they find out that they did, in fact, deliberately go to advertisers and choke out competition, then there should be remedies made to limit what they can do as far as choking out competition.
Yeah.
And things like that. I think that they need caught up in front of Congress and to address the fact, which no one's mentioning, that they destroyed the internet and destroyed, that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of websites to try to promote themselves. And that needs to be brought up, and that's not getting mentioned.
Yeah, that is probably the next phase, because there is another hearing next month about advertising. Because it's taken like 2 years for these cases to kind of work their way through the system, but I do think it is.
So in 2 years, they'll
held
accountable
around
for all the websites that are
all the websites
long gone.
They've destroyed. Yeah, because what they're doing, for those of you who haven't been watching the channel or haven't been paying attention to this, is a couple of months ago they changed their search algorithm to include AI snippets. Now, instead of sending traffic to external websites, they're keeping people on Google, where they can monetize them more effectively and keep all the money themselves. And then they're using AI overviews to give people the information they want. They're pulling the information.
So it chokes out websites.
Yes.
Their revenues drop like 70 to 90%, and they can't be found.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could be like, hey, Google is just hurting itself because they do a revenue share with these websites. I'm like, yes, they do a revenue share. If they keep them on Google's search engine page, on Google's website and their ecosystem, they get all the money.
Right. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. They are hurting themselves in the fact that where they're getting their AI snippets from is probably from other people's work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
they're I'm sure there are going to be some lawsuits there too. Let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, yeah, woohoo if you do.
Woohoo.
So yeah, this is coming from Fox Business. The Department of Justice mulls Google breakup over monopoly concerns. The Justice Department says it hasn't decided on what it's going to do, but apparently breaking it up is on the table. They're weighing options that could include breaking up Google after a federal judge held that the tech giant and its parent company Alphabet maintained an illegal monopoly over the online search market, according to a report. This is, I think, originated from Bloomberg. They said the antitrust division of the Department of Justice is considering pursuing Google's breakup as one of the potential remedies it may pursue to address the tech giant's monopoly status, citing people with knowledge of the agency's deliberations. Now, apparently their stock took a big hit yesterday because of this, because they're like, uh-oh. Now, this hasn't happened, to the best of my knowledge, this hasn't happened since, like, Bell Telephone.
Yeah, I don't remember it happening for a long time.
Because I remember when we were kids, that was like the big thing. It was like we had Ma Bell, and then I remember it. I mean, I was little when it happened.
Was Bell everything.
Bell, you get these big ass telephone books, and it was all Bell, and the phones were Bell, and they had like a Bell store, and they had, and then they broke it up because it was like, yeah, if you wanted to. Then they had other carriers. I remember. For a while, they had other long distance. Okay, back in the day, kids, not only did we have rotary phones, but we had this thing called long distance.
And the prices were insane.
It was incredibly expensive to call somebody on the other side of the country. So these other companies popped up almost overnight, and they were doing like long distance cheap or whatever. So you could choose your long distance carrier. and not have to pay, Bell or whatever. But they broke Bell up into multiple companies. So they had Bell Atlantic and AT&T. And so they're saying this could happen with Google. Now, the thing is about Google is they started as a search engine and they basically acquired a bunch of companies and they grafted them onto the Google beast. YouTube being one of them. But so I'm like, okay, well, what about Disney?
Yeah.
What about Disney? Go after them. But it does set a precedent, right? They said the Department of Justice could seek to force Google to divest its Android operating system and the Chrome web browser, while its text advertising arm, AdWords, could also be the subject of a divestment push, per the report. The outlet's sources suggested that the Department of Justice is likely to seek restrictions on Google using...
Yeah, I think that's what they'll do is restrict.
Exclusivity agreements to maintain its... Man, speaking of Google, there's too many Google ads on your site, Fox.
Well, you think about it. Google owns the ads. Google owns, AdSense that sites use. Google owns a search engine that those sites use.
Gmail and all the services associated
Google
with that.
owns,
the Chrome browser, which is constantly tracking you.
Google owns YouTube.
Yeah. If you have an Android phone, they own the Android operating system. If you use a Chrome browser, they own that. If you use Gmail and you use the tools, they own that. If you're on YouTube, they own that. It really is.
And they,
it really
they can
is a Google
basically
world.
control whether or not you get seen.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. You tick them off, they could theoretically
destroy you.
Yes.
Because a lot of people use Google for all their passwords and for all their important documents. A lot of businesses use Google. Other options the Department of Justice are considering, according to Bloomberg, include compelling Google to share more data with its competitors, as well as imposing measures to stop the company from gaining an unfair advantage in AI. Well, I wouldn't worry about that. One, everybody's getting into AI. Two, Google's AI sucks. Maybe that's why it intentionally sucks. Yes, it's always going to render George Washington as a black lesbian in a wheelchair because, they have to do something badly. They can't be good at everything. So the report comes after a federal judge ruled earlier this month that Google had gained and illegally maintained a monopoly with 90% of online searches, 95% of smartphone searches. They said
they made deals with service providers to make sure that they blocked or they were promoted.
Yeah, well, Apple kind of does the same thing though, right? But they actually made a deal with Apple. They made a deal with Apple. The judge noted that Google paid over $26 billion in 2021 to ensure its search engine remained the default option on web browsers and smartphones, preserving valuable market share. So this is where it gets very complicated because you do have the government interfering in business. And what if they lower the bar and they're like, well, we just think you're too successful, so we're just going to...
Yeah, but at the same time is they're not stopped. It's they take everything, and now they're going to destroy thousands of people who they're swiping their content for to make AI snippets.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. But the thing is, everybody basically built their business around Google, right? They built any online business, they build it around being searchable in Google. And they actually pay you for that. You can have your Google business profile and all this other stuff. So, you know what I'm saying? AdWords and all that. But everybody who started an online business in the last 15 years, for the most part, has paid the Google tax, right? You've had to basically dance to Google's tune. But we kind of gave them that power because Google was just one of several search engines 20 years ago, and now they're they're it. And but they're saying that they use some dicey, sketchy means to get to that position. In the wake of last week's ruling, Google President of Global Affairs Kent Walker said in a statement the decision recognizes that Google offers the best search engine, but concludes that we shouldn't be allowed to make it easily available. The statement noted that the court found Google's search engine was more widely used and delivered higher quality results than rivals. Well, until they did the AI snippet bullshit. Now it's I actually have been using DuckDuckGo more often because I want to find actual websites and forums and stuff like that. But yeah, this was filed back in 2020. So it took them 4 years.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen now.
4 years.
By the time anything's done to remedy the situation, it's going to be far worse.
That's just it. Because it's already yeah, by the time they actually do anything, we're probably talking another year or two. I mean, how long have they been talking about like, oh, this TikTok ban? It's still, is it going to happen? Is not, who knows? And, Google is going to plan accordingly because these tech companies can move a lot faster than our court system. So, like you said, I don't think the big lawsuit from all the publishers and all the studios and all the whatever suing them over AI snippets, that hasn't happened yet because the AI snippet thing just happened a couple of months ago, and it's already destroyed like 3/4 of the websites out there. Like they just nuked the entire internet, and they are the internet now. But yeah, they're saying it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. According to Market Watch, they said a breakup is unlikely. It's a rare and drastic tactic.
I don't think they're going to do that either. I think they're going to do the other things they're mentioning. I really doubt they'll do the breakup.
Yeah, and they tried to do this with Microsoft too, but they basically, if I remember how that went, oh yeah, they're talking about DuckDuckGo being a competitor. They're talking about it, but the average Joe doesn't know.
I'd never heard of it really.
What DuckDuckGo is. It's basically the only other option. It's another search engine, and it actually does include results that Google filters out. Google gives you what it thinks, or what the people working at Google thinks are the most relevant results. And sometimes some websites they will not even show you. They're like, oh yeah, this website doesn't exist because we don't like what they say, or they're not playing ball, or they're critical, or whatever the hell. Like during the pandemic, any websites that had anything critical of certain pharmaceutical companies were sort of conveniently, downplayed or just not listed on Google at all. Like you couldn't find it on Google, but you could go to DuckDuckGo and find that information. And we're talking from like actual news sources. They just would not include it in their results. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, guys. There we go. There is precedent. It's happened before, but it is very, very rare. We're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.